So
And
it's
then,
like it's like you were
yeah,
listening to it, you were listening to respond and not listening to understand.
exactly. And I think that's what most of us do, right? When
Right.
we're at the security of our social media devices, platforms, we can we can send it with no shame because we're maybe an anonymous person or whatever. But when it's
And I think that's a
in
big
person,
part of
it's
the
different.
problem. I think
Mm,
that's a big part of the problem, David, is
yeah, go for it.
uh social media is has it's social media has gotten to the point where we have dehumanized each other so
Mm,
quickly.
mm.
And if you're online, let's say Facebook, X, any of the
Big
social
ones.
media sites, if you're on there and you read a comment that you don't agree with, right, and it triggers you, like you said, but
Mm.
you don't see that other person writing that comment as a person. You don't see them as a human being. So my guest today is David Deighton. How are you today, David?
I'm doing great. I'm a great conversationalist.
It's very nice to meet you, man. So you're an artist, is that right?
Yeah, that's right. That's yeah, more than a conversationalist. I'm an artist that looks for weird ways of doing stuff always on the periphery.
Hey man, that's me too. Me too. I'm always so I hate sticking with the predictability of a
Mm,
normal life, and I like to embrace the strange. I like to embrace the weird. So earlier last year I was diagnosed with autism. And so it I'm 40, so it was very well, it gave me a lot of good insight on why I've been the way I've been my whole life. So I am kind of embraced that weird. I've been that way my whole life. So it's awesome to hang out with a fellow weirdo.
right on. So, uh, autism. So, does that do you get a test or something? Or how's that work? How do you find out if you
So
have autism?
the reason why I got tested in the first place is my 6-year-old son, who he was a very big surprise in our lives. He wasn't planned, but
Mm,
when he was 2, he was just a little developmentally behind other kids. And so we took him to be evaluated, and it turns out that he has a more severe form of autism. It's level 2 autism, is what they call it. He'll need substantial support his entire life.
mm,
So he is verbal, he does talk, but I just kind of I'm his main caregiver, so I'm with him every day, all day, every day, and we kind of share some of the same mannerisms. And I noticed I could immediately tell when he was feeling anxious because I could feel it.
mm.
And we kind of had this bond where we didn't have to talk to each other, and I knew kind of what was going on with him. And it made me think, I wonder if I have a little bit of autism myself, because my 6-year-old had to get it from somewhere. And so that was my motivation behind going and getting tested myself, was just to kind of, as a learning process, I guess I could say, is it might help me to uh, to raise my
Yeah, be
son.
yeah to be more present
Right,
for him,
right.
right? Yeah.
And so I went and got evaluated by a psychologist. And it was a very weird kind of process, because what he said was, I can't give you like a full evaluation, because I don't know what your childhood was like. And so there was several things that he ended up talking to me about that was not relevant to my testing, because once the testing started, he said it was pretty obvious.
Hmm.
So, and I was like, well, what does that mean? Is there something
Yeah.
wrong with me? And he's like, no, it's just you think differently than most people.
Uh-huh.
So that's where we were able to go into this subset of questions over here.
Mm.
And it was a process that took like 3 hours. But by the end of the 3 hours, they came to me and they said, we are fairly confident that you have autism. And
Wow.
so It was
Have you
the
have you shared that before on your program?
Yes, yes.
Yeah. Okay.
It was
Yeah.
before I even got tested. It was one of those things I talked about on the podcast itself. And my wife does the podcast with me sometimes, and we talk about, the my son having autism. I've spoke with multiple people about autism before I got tested, and then once I got tested, it was just like, oh, everything makes sense now.
Right on. Right on. So
So
it's genetic. It's genetic. I'm ignorant. So it's you're
it is genetic.
mhm,
There is so autism. I'm not really like caught up on the whole science of it all, but there are environmental factors that come into play, obviously. But from my understanding, it is passed down genetically,
mm,
and you may be a carrier, you may not be a carrier, and if you're a carrier and you procreate, the chances of your children having autism are pretty good. So it's I don't know what causes autism, but I do know that it is genetic, and there are a lot of testing and research that needs to be done on autism, find out, the causes of autism, where it comes from, why it happens, stuff like that. But I'm not
mm,
that deep into it. I'm more on the psychological side of it and how we can make each other feel better, or how we can learn more, or in the more severe cases of autism, how we can help caregivers and managing um, day-to-day life and activities with people with autism.
dang. This is where curiosity takes you. It's like I
Yeah,
want to learn more, right?
exactly,
And then
exactly,
I
and
want
I love that.
to, and then the association that you made as to thinking about out of the box in the periphery made me think, oh, do I have autism too? Or, put it in the category to just to be able to explain to oneself, give reasons as to why we're appear different to others or think differently.
Well, I mean, that's ultimately that's one of the questions I wanted to answer myself when I went and got tested. Was my whole life I've thought differently than everybody that I know,
Hmm.
and it's more. I'm like, take politics for instance. I'm more of
Okay.
a black and white type of guy. I see the nuance. I can look past the nuance to get to a black and white solution. And it's I don't often, so communication is one of those things that I struggle with. And it's another reason why I started the podcast, was
Yeah, says
because
the guy on the podcast. It's fantastic.
exactly,
Like you're
exactly.
ready to face stuff.
I
Yeah.
talk about that and
Mm,
facing adversity and all that good
mm,
stuff on the podcast too. That's one of the things that I love to talk about is struggles, and how we need struggles, and how if you go through your life and you don't have any struggles, if you come up against adversity, you oftentimes don't know how to handle it.
mm. Practice.
Exactly,
Take small
exactly.
chunks. Start with small chunks.
Absolutely. And so let's talk about
Mm,
your art installations. So you've got some
mhm.
art installations called Triptych Dialogue, and I'm very interested in that because I love the concept behind it. You just like to talk to strangers, whether you agree with them or you don't agree with them, and open dialogue is your thing. And I want to just talk to, how did you get that started?
Uh, well, I feel like it was put upon me, if you want, by circumstance, right? I have a kid. I don't see the future being very too bright for her with all the division in the country. I'm talking about the US. We're a binational family. So in France, where I'm originally from, there's also greater polarization and division, and it's the same mechanics of social media, polarization brought in by disinformation and misinformation by media groups. Um, Not all media groups. I have greater faith sometimes even are in the government than I do in the ones that are corporately held. But as long as you know where your information is coming from, right? But the division that I see growing and growing, it comes to a point where people are no longer willing to talk about certain subjects. Now, for me as an artist, taboos are ones that should be addressed and explored, not in a um, not in order to exploit them in order to create hurt, but to know why they're a taboo. And if there's something that There's some good in there that could be pulled out and what needs to be isolated. Anyway, just to explore the subject, and one of the big ones in the U.S. has become politics, right? I was like, oh, this is not good. This is one of the main reasons of polarization and division in the country. So what do I do here? And and it all the origin story is that I was in London at the Victoria and Albert Museum, and I saw this religious piece. It had three panels to it, and it was from the 14th century, from mid 1300s. And it has, triptych panels have religious imagery on them, and they kind of speak to one another. And the
Yeah.
three panels, two of the panels close in on the front one, on the center one, and they reveal another image on the back. The detail of this one was that half of the imagery was not present. It had worn off with time, like it was missing the message. And I was saying, okay, where's the missing message in all of these aspects of polarization, disinformation? It's the part that we don't know, right? We only see always a part of what it is, the message that's being put before us, if you like. Where does it come from? Who made it? All those things. I'm interested in that, and so I explored that in different ways using digital art forms. I also went online and joined a social media group on Instagram and did a 1-year project on there. And I was exploring. I'm more on the left, so I went to explore like alt-right groups and all this stuff, and uh, and tried to communicate and go back and forth, see how the damn thing worked, right? And
Right.
and the thing is that it didn't let me. I'd get banned. I got banned like half a dozen times without, but not shadow banned. I don't know if you heard of this thing. It's like you get banned a few days and then don't do it again, but they don't send you an email and tell you what happened.
Yeah, it
And then
happens
it's
to
a
me
week.
all the time. Anytime I release a political podcast, it usually takes a few days to kind of catch up and
And get
really
out
get the
there.
views that I want. Because so I don't know if it's an algorithm thing or if it's just a thing where uh you say the wrong things and the corporate people that the platform that you're on don't agree with it. I'm not sure which it is, but in any case, yeah, shadow banning is a thing, and even though they say it's not, it
Right.
absolutely is.
It is, right? And it's frustrating, right? But that was
Yes.
just part of the art experiment. I just learning that there's such a thing. And after that, for doing a year of that, I thought, well, listen, I'm not I'm not getting in. I've learned a lot, but if I want to make a brighter future for my kid, and I'm going to have to go out there in person, right, and meet people in person, because the digital devices certainly are not making us any. They're making us closer in some respects, as long as they're like-minded people. As soon as we're with people that are outside the group, even the algorithm stops you from communicating really outside of your group. So stay in your group, shut up, take it. Was like, that's not gonna work. So I went in person and started doing interviewing people, random people I'd meet, and ask them political questions. People in the street, people in public spaces and parks, and then found myself that brought me over to go to national parks, where you get people from all different, not all, but from a much wider variety and diversity of the country, and visitors from abroad that come to visit, like big ones like the Grand Canyon and Yellowstone. So I went to those spaces and I started asking to answer these three non-confrontational political questions. And they'd go, "What do you mean non-confrontational political questions? There's no such thing. Politics is confrontation." I was like, "Well, no, 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 it doesn't have to be. Let's go with this." And then I'd ask them the question, but the deal is I wouldn't respond. I'd just listen in and practice active listening. Just really be there and hear what the people had to say, right?
Yeah,
But
exactly what I'm doing right now.
that's what you do. The thing was, for me though, I was like, I'm a novice, right? So like the first 100 times I did this, I'd get triggered. I'd get triggered. Like, oh, did they say that? Oh, you're not supposed to say that. Right? Oh, did they that? They believe in that, really? And then I wasn't even thinking. I wasn't even hearing what they had to say. I was like, oh, when this is over, I'm gonna have to tell them this, or I'm gonna have to do this, or tell them that fact is wrong, or just be all self righteous about it.
So
And
it's
then
like it's like you were
yeah,
listening to it, you were listening to respond and not listening to understand.
exactly. And I think that's what most of us do, right? When
Right.
we're at the security of our social media devices, platforms, we can we can send it with no shame because we're maybe an anonymous person or whatever. But when it's
And I think that's a
in
big
person,
part of
it's
the
different.
problem. I think
Mm,
that's a big part of the problem, David, is
yeah, go for it.
uh social media is has it's social media has gotten to the point where we have dehumanized each other so
Mm,
quickly.
mm.
And if you're online, let's say Facebook, X, any of the
Big
social
ones, yeah.
media sites, if you're on there and you read a comment that you don't agree with, right, and it triggers you, like you said, but
Mm,
you don't see that other person writing that comment as a person. You don't see them as a human being.
mm,
And that's where a lot of these face-to-face interactions come in handy, is because when you're looking at one another, you have to see each other as a human being, right? You look
mm.
like me, I look like you. We're the same animal, and when people get back to that point where we humanize each other again, I think that's where the conversation will calm down, the rhetoric will calm down, and we can have those dialogues open up, and we can say things that may or may not upset a person, but they won't take it personal because they understand that whoever just said it, those are their words, not my words. Those are their opinions, not my opinions. We don't have to share the same ideas. We just, it's conversation. It's not that deep.
Right. Yeah, we could have that, but then okay, all right. So it's easier to do it with people which are within our own group, right? That we all agree with,
Absolutely.
right? Now let's say I'm going to argue this is because it's my own personal experience that it's easier to talk to a stranger, right? That has all the everything you despise about them and their beliefs, right? Than it is to speak to somebody that's much closer to you. A family member or a friend or something that voted differently, and you can't accept that they voted that way. That's harder because you have there's the emotion, there's the connection, there's the relationship. For the stranger,
Yeah.
it's a great place to start, right?
Yeah.
But it's not a great place to start if you use words that might trigger the other person. So that's why I use active listening. I just using questions. First of all, they weren't my own. They were built by linguists because my own questions were polarizing. I didn't. I tried my best, couldn't do it. Um, and and to be able to listen in, right, and let the triggers go. That was my other thing. That's a hard one. Let the triggers go because I'm not going to change facts or opinions for them, right? They're set in their ways. We're good. We're just having a conversation, one of the toughest ones on politics, right? So I'm going to let it go. And then I'm looking for one word that I have in common with them. And I found if there's nothing else, I can find one word and still be focusing on what they're saying and not, but I'm going to look for an emotion, right?
Yeah.
So they're upset or they're angry, they're pissed off or whatever it is, or they're hopeful. And if everything else doesn't agree with me, I'll tell them after the end. Is like, you know what? If they ask me, of course, um, but I'll let them know. It's like, you know what? You said you were angry. I'm angry too, right? And that libtard that you were talking about, guess what? I'm one of them.
Yeah.
And usually it ends up being, oh well, you're not, you're different. When I
Yes, that's exactly what it's like.
and then I'm like, oh, cool, that's right. That's exactly what I wanted. Like, you're different now. Just remember the humanity of that opponent that we no longer speak to, and you'll have the story of the meeting with me or whoever does it. You'll have that experience. You'll have shown your humanity in others, and you'll be surprised because there's so much that you might find in common, or be able to ask questions to finally understand what the heck, why do they believe this or that, or where do they get it from. You created the basis of just having a civil conversation. Uh, so I'll explore that, not just with interviews, but I'll set up. art installations, like physical installations in the national parks that will bring people over and look at it and go, oh, what the heck is this thing doing here? What is it, right? and and that's also creates an interaction with a story, right? And it's a story that I want people to be able to take with them when they don't have an excuse to talk to a stranger. Then at least they have the story to say, you know what? I was at the Grand Canyon. You went to Grand Canyon? I went to the Grand Canyon, but I saw the weirdest thing. And then they could talk about what happened there, the exchange, the experience of where it happened. People relate to stories, right? So I build a story situation that they can take with them in order to allow the prompt to happen for them to speak to strangers themselves about politics.
Man, that's awesome. That is
Yeah,
so awesome.
it's
I
so weird. It's awesome. But you
I'm
know what? I got to say one thing. I got to say it's
go ahead.
awesome because I've never had an argument with anyone, which blew me away. Like you're supposed to, I should have had hundreds of arguments, but I haven't had one yet.
Well, I think it's so your demeanor is a little disarming, if you want me to be honest. Like
Okay,
it would be hard for me. How tall are you, David?
I'm almost. My daughter would say, "Oh, you're almost 6 foot, Dad."
Okay, so I'm 6 foot, almost I'm
All right, you're bigger.
280
Yeah, you're bigger.
pounds. Yeah. So I'm six
Oh, in
foot,
both ways.
280 pounds, and I'm a big bearded fella. And
Yeah,
like you said, you're on the left, and
yeah.
or you have been primarily on the left your whole life. Well, I was on the center left for a long time until 2017, 2018-ish. And
Mm,
then I started slowly moving towards I say I started moving. I consider myself in the same spot, but the left started moving farther left, the right
mm,
started moving farther right. So I'm here in the center, but I identify more with conservative politics than I do liberal politics. And so for me, I find that my demeanor and it is if I trigger someone, if I say something that triggers someone, as long as I don't match their energy, I can
mm,
keep the conversation pretty calm. Now, if I match their energy and get aggressive or loud, it blows the conversation up. But normally that doesn't normally happen with me with strangers, but it does happen with me with family.
there
And
we go.
I think it's
Go into that.
largely people taking things that I say personally.
Hmm.
And I'm just trying to speak. I'm just trying to talk. And while and again, that goes back to like my whole black and white thinking on some things. I can acknowledge the nuance. I think about the nuance in my head, and ultimately what comes out of my mouth is like a black and white kind of thing. And I often can't um I can't dissect things to um, articulate the nuance or how I understand the nuance. Because if I lay it out, how it just replayed in my head, what took me 3 minutes to think about might take an hour and a half to explain.
Mm,
So,
hmm.
when I come across strangers, as long as I don't match their energy and when I trigger them, um, we can usually get past that. Where I specialize is like finding common ground with everyone or anyone. I
Hmm.
can pretty much find common ground with just about anyone, even on the extremes, left and right. I can find common ground with pretty much anyone. Like uh like I don't agree with communism. I
Hmm.
dislike communism. However, there are some aspects of socialism I certainly understand, and I can talk about why I disagree with those. But for me, I just like I love talking to people so much that if we don't agree on one thing like politics, or if we don't agree on this or that, there's generally something that we can come together on. And all that stuff doesn't matter. And when I come across people like strangers, my family members, it doesn't matter who I'm trying to I'm almost never trying to change minds. I'm
Hmm.
just speaking. And I don't generally talk to people to try to change their minds. They are their own individual people, and we're just having a conversation.
Mm-hmm.
And I think
Right,
that's where a
right.
lot of
Yeah,
people
let's
go
talk
wrong
the
when they,
pain. Oh,
oh, yeah, go ahead.
oh, sorry. Yeah, no, that makes me think of pain, right? It's like you were talking how the difficulty, like talking with closer relations, and how it would take longer to be able to explain your precisely to them what your point of view might be or something like this. Um, it's painful. We have skin in the game, right?
Yeah.
We want to maintain the years of relationship that we had, but there's been a disconnect because we might be spending more time hearing the opinions of on our devices than we are of the person that we care about. So it's unfortunate we spend more time caring for the screen in our pocket and what it has to
Yes.
deliver than the people around us. Um, and that should be an invitation for us all to do just that, and to go spend more time to the other, and to see them, hear them, spend time with them, listen in. Um, but the pain that it creates is present, right? It creates pain within you when you have to when you're opening up
Yeah.
and you hear things. You have to be vulnerable at that time and not be triggered. Um, and makes you wonder why one would even want to do that with a stranger, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, and there's one thing that I've noticed is that it's a political action, right? That we can all do, of bridging our communities at a time of division. Um, and but it's still painful in the senses that you have to hear stuff you don't want to hear, right?
Yes.
But it's not as emotionally charged. Um, but I did find that way how to surmount the trigger, if you want, and hence not feel as much of the pain, if you want, of hearing things you disagree with. Um, and is to bring it once again, like we were starting at the beginning, from the periphery of things,
Yeah.
and to be. So the literature shows that we have to listen with all of our senses, right? You read this stuff, it's like, oh, you got all of your senses. I gotta listen with all my senses. What does that mean? Okay, I'm gonna listen. Okay, I can kind of see, like, I'm here. I can see. Okay, we've got the visual and audio. What I'm not. What is it? The touch, right? And smell and taste. I'm not gonna taste the person, right? What's that? So it's like I had no idea. So I'm gonna bring it back to the public and ask them. So in another installation, I asked these three non-confrontational political questions, right? And then I asked people to give me one word at the end that kind of ties in all of their thoughts, and that's kind of hard to do. They give me one word, and let's say that word is republic or chaos or whatever. And I have these hundreds of words, and I used them with the public, and I'd ask them, okay, I got these words, tell them the background story, and I'd say, okay, the next one I got on my list is chaos, let's say. And then ask them, what does chaos taste like? They're like, what? What do you mean? What does it taste like? It's like, yeah, well, I explore all the senses. I got this word. What does it taste like? And then on another occasion, with hundreds of words I did with hundreds of different people, like, what does it smell like? Right? With this
Wow.
list of words. And it comes to the side. So and I was looking for answers, right? And it was like, people were telling me, chaos tastes like, a smoothie, or with gravel in it or something. I don't know. But
I could tell you what
what I know,
chaos tastes like to
okay, yeah,
me
tell, what is it? Go for it. Go for it.
when
What does it
when you
taste
were
like?
saying that, I was
Yeah.
thinking like what would chaos taste like? And so I'm not exactly sure
Oh,
what it would taste like, but I know what it
mm.
feels like, I
Oh,
guess.
go for it.
When
Do
and
it.
when putting into a context of what it tastes like when you're eating something really delicious and then you bite your tongue.
Oh, I hate
That's
that.
what, yes,
And you
and
do it,
that's what
and then you do it
chaos tastes
again,
like. Yes, yes.
and
So
then do it
it
again.
really doesn't have anything to do with the taste, but
Mm.
the action of biting your tongue when you're trying to taste is
Mm.
chaos.
It's chaos. I like that. That's cool.
Yeah, I just came up with that just now,
Yeah,
and you're
yeah.
like, what does
Is
chaos taste like? And I'm thinking, like, what would chaos taste like? I got it. Would I bite my tongue?
and it takes you somewhere else, right? Like, so at that
Yeah.
moment, it takes you somewhere else, right? And So what I found is that now when I get triggered by something, I immediately think of what it tastes like or smell. And just for a split second there, I'll just take it there. And you know what? It disappears the whole argument and opinion thing where I'm like, oh, I got to counter that in my mind or later with them or whatever. I that completely lets it go because now I was like, oh, that's sour grapes. Okay, what else is this guy saying? And get back into it. And I've used it as a method through the practice. Now I didn't come out with but it helps me to be there and present and to listen in. So now I'm
Yeah.
wondering, so when I hear something awkward that's offbeat to me, I wonder what that from my mind wanders off with it, right? So I can be present and listening in for that person. What's that taste like? That tastes like.
And it also it helps break up the conversation as
Mm,
well too, because I notice when I'm starting
mm,
to kind of fade out during a conversation, it's usually doesn't have anything to do with the subject matter. It's the way they're conveying their thoughts.
mm,
And my wife is my editor, so she'll hear this first and she'll kind of get a giggle. But I find myself being honest with the people around me more and more when I'm starting to lose that focus. And with my
mm,
wife, I'm kind of brutally honest about it. But I'll say, hey, can we tighten this up? Can you get to that thought real quick? Because I'm fading out here. I'm losing interest. And just me being honest with them, and I'm sure it pisses some off, or it would. Um, but if I'm honest about it and say, hey, I'm loving this conversation right now, but I'm having a hard time paying attention. Like, can we switch gears or something,
mhm,
And
mhm.
and it usually doesn't have anything to do with what they're saying. It's how long it's taken them to say it.
Right, right. Well, can we demand that of people? I mean, yeah, I guess we can get to the subject or back to where you were at before you were doing a long story or narrative about something. Yeah. I mean, that's part of the richness of conversation, right? As
Yes,
well.
yes.
And it's the role that we each have to play to kind of bring it back online. I mean, you could have been different about it and been angry,
Right,
right?
right.
But that's
And
not what
so
you do. You give instructions of how you feel, so that should work.
And
Yeah.
that's exactly. There's so many reasons, and I talk about this all the time. There's so many reasons why I started the podcast, and one of them was to help me with my active listening,
Mm.
because I
Oh, this
often,
is cool.
yeah, I often like let my mind wander in conversations, and I end up missing parts of what they're saying because I'm not honest. And hey, can we tighten that up? And I think for me, the most of the time, the people I interact with that I speak that way to understand my nuance and understand how I am and how my brain works. And like obviously nobody understands how my brain works, but they have a better understanding than a stranger would. And obviously, if I'm talking to a stranger, I wouldn't be rude about it or anything like that. And I would just kind of let the conversation evolve, and I would let my mind wander. I wouldn't be rude in that moment and say, hey, you're annoying, can we start talking about something different? And I wouldn't do anything like that. I just let my mind wander, but that's just part of who I am.
There's play. So I think that when you're saying that brings me to another point is about where the conversations take place, right? About place and situation, the physical place of where they happen, right? So some areas are more conducive than others. If you're going to have an intimate conversation, you're going to want, probably some quiet and some personal space to
Yeah,
to do so, right?
not in the middle of the
We're
grocery store.
not in, well, it could be a good spot somewhere in there. If you're in line at the grocery store and there's tons of people around you and you're speaking to the stranger,
Right.
everybody's going to be listening in, so you're going to tailor it to that situation. Um, but we do have a few interactions sometimes in the grocery store, and they can lead to other things. Um, but it's not. It's, of course, you're right. It's not the best place for sure. I was thinking, for me, it was like trying to talk to busy streets like New York,
Yeah,
right? People
yeah.
are on their way to go somewhere, right? They're walking. Don't bug me. I've got to go
Yes.
somewhere. So that doesn't work.
Yeah, I was thinking like a doctor's office or a
Yeah.
coffee shop. I'm one of those people
Mm.
that like I don't know a stranger. I'll talk to anybody and I start conversations in weird places like grocery stores or, I might poke fun or you know, I just try to break up the levity of the situation. I think I like to make people smile.
Mm.
And so a lot of times I'll say something kind of cute or smart in the moment. And if somebody's bending over to get something at the grocery store, I'll be like, "Hey, get out of there,"
I got it.
and it usually just breaks up the situation, brings a smile to somebody's face, and when everybody's walking around with a frown or, like with one of those faces that say just eat shit before you even talk to them,
Mm.
you've seen those kind of people, and when you encounter them and they have to interact with someone and it brings a smile to their face, they walk away and they keep that smile. They keep that energy and it lifts their spirit up. And I love that. One of the things that I do it out of habit now, but I was very intentional about it when I first started doing it is when I'm at the grocery store or I'm at the gas station or just somewhere where the interaction isn't going to take very long and somebody out of, politeness asks me, "Hey, how are you today?"
Mm.
Um if even if I'm having the worst day imaginable, my answer to them is usually something like "I'm wonderful. How are you?" And just that I'm wonderful. Even if I'm lying, it makes me feel better. It's kind of
Mhm.
like fake a smile until it
And
feels
until
real.
yeah, or a laugh, you
Yeah,
give it until you're like
exactly,
cracking up.
exactly. And so I that's one of those little mind tricks that I have. If I'm feeling really, really bad, or it really doesn't matter if I'm having a great day or if I'm having a wonderful day. It really doesn't matter if somebody asks me how I am. That's my response to them. And regardless of what kind of day I'm having, it instantly makes me feel better. It instantly puts me in a better mood, and it instantly is. I shift from a grumbly
Hmm.
type of guy into a, "Oh, I'm great. How are you?" You know what I mean? And
Hmm.
it started as a very intentional thing, and now it's just normal for me.
Right. It's transformational, right? Doing those little acts kind of gets you. I like the one of the smile or the laugh that's contagious, right?
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah. That's the idea behind having these conversations as well, right? Is and we, especially with somebody that's really hard, right? That doesn't that's just angry to start with, and I found that okay, now this is going to be one of those times, I'm going to ask my questions and it's all going to come out and there's going to be a lot of anger, but it as things go and I'm listening, I'm being there and hearing it and leaning in, just things are just calming down and then at the end the message is different and more positive. And I know that at that moment also you just got some shit out, right? They got to
yeah,
let it out. And I've had people that cry as well because they just right there. They cry because they've never had somebody ask them or listen to them on answering political questions. They wanted to for ages because the whole everything around us like pushes for the political opinion and fact and how it influences and the disaster this and disaster and this needs to be. But just being able to say it to someone, somebody real,
yeah.
it's weird. But and it can be weird moments. I've had this one lady she was crying and I felt like coming in to give her a hug, like it's gonna be okay. And her husband comes over saying, "What the hell did you
What'd
do
you
to my
do?
wife?" Like, no, man, I'm good.
It's not like that, I
It's like,
swear.
yeah, and she was like, "No, it's okay. He's just asking me political questions." And he's like, "What?
Why are
Why
you
would you talk about
crying?
politics? Why are you talking about politics?
Yeah,
You shouldn't
that's
be." And he said
hilarious.
something. He said something too as weird as like, "You shouldn't be talking about politics with strangers." I thought, Oh, that's interesting. That's exactly what I believe we
That's the
should be
best
doing.
people to talk to, honestly. I
Yeah.
mean,
Yeah.
so
Mm,
again, I'm not trying to change anybody's mind when I'm trying to
mm,
talk to them. And I think that's another one of those reasons socially that we've gone sideways is everybody's trying to change everybody's mind, and
mm.
everybody says, they think their opinions are the correct opinions or their opinions are facts. And I'm the type of guy like I may be wrong. I don't know. I'm just me. I'm just living, and
Yeah, let's start with a
um
living.
yeah,
Could it be because we're just constantly pushed on facts and opinions upon us that we're like, okay, now I want to get that out to somebody else because I
right.
just took in 5 hours of it, right?
I think
Interspersed with
that may be
ads,
part of it.
and now I need to bring it out myself, right? And then so we need to offer some of that human experience because we're 100 times stronger of our personal experience than the one that we get online,
Right.
right? And we have a lot more effect and influence in the sense of bringing community together and bridging, right? Uh, not in order to convince people of our political opinions. That's a I don't even want to go there,
Yes,
right?
yes.
But just to show our sense of humanity, right?
Well,
That's
I,
what you're
I
doing.
think I think I'm aware of perceptions, man. And I think I
Mm,
don't know if it's me being aware of those perceptions and other people not really thinking about those perceptions. But I know oftentimes perception's not reality, and perception's individual to each of us. So depending on how, let's just say you're a well-traveled guy. So you see politics on a whole different level than I do because you are a world traveler. I've never left the United States and I'm very comfortable here in my Missouri home.
mhm,
And so a lot of people don't often challenge their own beliefs or their own ideologies or the way that they look at things, whereas I do that on a daily basis. Like if I see some kind of information and well, with politics, let's just say a politician said something on this channel. Well, I know that one thing is going to be perceived differently depending on who's hearing it.
mhm,
And just that level of understanding is extremely helpful in situations like when you're talking about politics because you understand that this person has different experiences in their lives and they go through different things than I do. Whereas we live paycheck to paycheck, and some of these people that I talk to have, they have cushy bank accounts or they literally don't have a pot to piss in. It
mhm.
just kind of depends on the situation, but I can't force my view on them because they haven't experienced what I've experienced. They haven't read the same articles that I've read. They haven't read the same books that I've read. They haven't seen the same movies or documentaries or listened to the same speeches or so I have my own unique perspective on things, as do you. And if I'm talking to like right now, I'm talking to you and I'm aware that you're in Colombia right now. And that's just blowing my mind that we're on two,
Yeah, it's
we're
weird.
thousands of miles away and we're having this conversation. And I'm aware that I have political biases. I'm aware that I have cognitive biases. I'm aware that I
Mhm.
have all these things that makes me a separate person. So in a conversation, I'm just not trying to convince someone that my way of thinking is the correct way. I'm I'm trying to, just find that common ground that we can start a conversation, let it evolve from there. We may be best friends after that. I don't know. I've got several friends that I'm completely different politically. I've got a few friends on the not extreme left, but
Mhm.
pretty far on the left, and
Looking like it. Yeah.
I've got some friends that are on the other side of the spectrum,
Mm,
and I can talk to them in the same room sometimes because like we acknowledge these things, like we acknowledge that we are number one, we are not our government, and we can have these conversations and an open dialogue, if we can't agree on this one thing, maybe we talk about this thing over here, or maybe we dive in and find out why we don't agree on certain things. Like, what are the nuances that we disagree on?
Mhm. I like to
And
think that we are our own government in the sense from the bottom up. We have a lot more power than we think we do, especially when you're
yes,
doing things like you're doing, having those conversations, maybe linking that guy on the left with a guy on the right, and say you guys should talk, or but do it this way or whatever. Uh, that's right there where our power is. It's to me, it's we got the vote, but we don't all exercise it. So
yeah,
many of us say, oh, it doesn't matter. But if we say that, we definitely, what one thing we can do is talk to people, right?
yeah,
In the way that you're talking about, the way I'm talking about. Do that. That is so powerful. And we get to do it every day if we want to, right?
absolutely.
So for those of us that complain of politics, this and that, just get out there and talk to people. That's a great way to start. And you're going to be spending less time getting pushed information from online to being able to share what your points are and redefine those and get to know them. And then maybe that'll draw you to like, you know what? I never knew I was wanted to be in this community activity or do this. And then all of a sudden you got a whole new group of friends, because
Yes,
you're joining in
yes.
and stuff.
Well,
Uh, yeah.
one thing I've noticed in today's society is that
Mm,
we do have a difficulty talking to each other face to face. And
mm,
I think that's a lot due to the always being in a screen, always having a screen in your face, having social media and all that stuff. And in particular, the dating of 2025, 2026 is
dating.
extremely. I don't understand like how people got to a point where they forgot how to talk to each other.
Mm,
But dating is a perfect example of that. On social media, I'll see so many posts or see so many people talking about being single and how do they meet people? How do they date? And they're on Tinder, they're on this, they're on the dating websites and they're not having any success. And
wow.
I'm
Okay.
like, go outside and talk to people. That's
Mm,
dating in a nutshell. Go
mm,
outside and talk to people. I can meet people walking to my mailbox, right?
mhm.
I talk to the mail delivery person, and they're like, "Oh, I don't come in contact with people." Like, what do you mean you don't come in contact with people? Do you just stay in your house, you work from home, and you never go anywhere? That's what you're
Yeah.
saying. Well, no,
Mhm.
obviously not. I go this place and this place and this place, and I'm like, do you
Take
ever
advantage of
see
that.
do you ever see people?
Yeah.
No, yeah, of course I see people. Go talk to them. Go start up a conversation with them. And even if they're thrown off by it, oh well, at least you shot your shot. It's a lot different. You're going to get different results than dating apps and going to the bars and stuff like that. Cause, like, let's be honest, who goes to the bar to meet people? I don't go
Mm.
to the bar to meet people. I mean, that's the worst place to meet a friend. So, I mean, those are friends in the moment, but it's
Yeah.
not exactly friends that you're going to have probably 2 weeks from now or two
I don't
years.
know. Unless you go to the same bar every day.
That's true. That's
That's
true, I
true too.
guess. But
I see what you're saying.
so David, you're in
Mm,
like let's talk about Colombia real
mm,
quick, man. So
mm.
how long you been in Colombia?
I've been there for 3 weeks now, 3, 4 weeks.
Are you
Uh,
staying down there, or are you just
no,
moving
I'm just
around?
traveling. I'm just traveling. My wife and kid came here over the winter break, and we spent some time together. And airplane ticket was a lot cheaper if I just stayed in.
I hear that.
Way to
I
go.
hear that.
Uh, and you meet a lot of people while you travel. A lot of travelers and locals, and it's a very different culture, in the sense that everybody, first of all, in these towns, everybody says hi to one another, even if you're walking down the street. This you just have to say. Um, and you have conversations. Yesterday, somebody picked me up to go into town on a ride. I said, "Oh, come by my place. I've got a swimming pool and stuff like this. So, and bring some friends with you." So I'm gonna go over there later and go to their place.
That's awesome.
The culture is conducive to communication, but on the other hand, with a very strong culture of of family, friends, connections, being open to strangers and stuff. They've also had 50 years of a civil war,
Yeah.
or 50 years, not a civil war, but of armed conflict and violence on political reasons. And people are very polarized when it comes to politics here. So it's not just about talking and being present with the other. It's also which subjects that we bring up, and that's a subject that's avoided here is to talk much about politics because so much blood has been shed and displaced. So many displaced people that had left their homes over the decades. It's something like a third of the population of the entire country has moved to a new place. Has the
Wow.
highest rate after Afghanistan of landmines, personal landmines. Uh,
Wow.
I don't want to stop people from visiting here. There's plenty of places that don't have landmines. And if you stick to the trail, you're good. But what I'm saying is that some subjects that are painful need to be addressed in order to avoid conflicts that are to come. So the subjects that we think are going to bring up conflict might be the very subjects we need to address
Yes.
and make it part of our daily conversations in order to stop them from escalating.
Yes,
And
absolutely.
that's
What do
not
they
from
call that? They
personal
call that it's
experience. Uh,
diplomacy or
oh
something like
yeah,
that. Yeah.
okay, that would work. Yeah. But I wanted to say one thing earlier and disconnected to what we were just sharing is that you're a traveler, and although you've never, in my opinion, the way I see it, you're a traveler because of the curiosity that you have, because you know that very much going to the shopping center or whatever, you're going to meet people and talk to people, and travel is all about curiosity. Otherwise, it's just a very boring trip, isn't it? You
Yes.
can just, oh, I'm going to go visit all these things in the guidebook. Okay, great, and seen that dozens of churches or whatever. But I don't know what they eat. I don't know what they say. I haven't had any conversations. Uh, you got to be, if you're curious, that's traveling. So you don't have to leave the country in order to be a traveler. Is what I, you know,
Absolutely. I love that. I love
yeah.
it. It makes me think of like, so I do travel quite a
Mm,
bit here in the United States. I've never
I don't
left
know.
the United States is the thing. And I would love to, but in the first place, so the first place I want to go is Europe. I want to go travel
Mm,
Europe and go to the World War II historical sites and stuff
mm,
like that. And
mm,
that to me is one of the ultimate engagement trips is going and seeing historical sites and museums and talking to people and talking to historians and just living in that moment. But you're right. I am so curious about places like Colombia, for instance. When we get off here, I had no idea that Colombia was like a politically polarized place. And
mm,
I knew that there's lots of issues down there, with the the cartels and whatnot, and the government actively fighting the cartels, and then that's been going on for years. I knew about that kind of stuff, but I didn't know that
mm.
people were politically polarized there. So that's one of the things that when we get off here, I'm going to go check that out. But I'm very curious about other places outside of the United States, and I often take my head there because I can't
Mm,
afford to leave the country. So, I mean,
mm.
it's I guess I love that I am kind of a traveler in that way, and I will always be curious no matter what it is. Even if I know everything about everything, I'm still a very curious guy.
Yeah, and that's the other point, right? So we have desires maybe to usually in our community, there's a few people that are from abroad. They can be either recent immigrants or not, and those people are the ones it's very fun to go talk to because first of all, you're going to get to probably try some new food,
Yes,
which I'm always up for because they're gonna find a way to make in their home cooking right here in the U.S. And also stories and find out how the adjustments going on and all these things and discover much and great reception usually and that's traveling as well because we can find them within even our city block, right? There's somebody on our block that we haven't spoken to and we um, might be a bit different or something. Maybe give
absolutely.
those a go too. I think that's very much part of traveling. So to me, traveling could be in your own neighborhood. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So let's dive into one more
Yeah.
subject, and
Okay.
we'll bring this to an end, and I'll have
Okay.
you on again sometime because this has been great, and I want to talk about like in the future, updated on the installations to see how everything's going, if you don't
Oh yeah,
mind.
because I could talk about all the what happened, all the different installations and what they did, and yeah, there's plenty to share.
So
Mm,
one thing that comes to mind when talking about or thinking about Colombia,
mm,
and South America in general, psychedelics.
mm.
Have you dabbled with psychedelics at all?
Well, not here, not for a while. The thing is that drug narco, they call it a narco state or whatever.
Yeah.
I haven't smelled any weed anywhere, right? For one thing, whereas you go to a place like New York or Los Angeles or something, it's where Austin is, just smells all over the place. It's
I got to be honest
very
with you, David. I'm smelling it
yeah.
right now because I grow it. So,
Oh, okay. All right. So and I have like I was near the river. They like to go out to the river. Entire families go to the river. And there's 20, 30 people. That's what you do on the weekend. And there occasionally somebody would be smoking, but it's low quality, which I found really interesting. I could smell it. Um, and so they grow stuff, but it's not. People are very conservative here
yeah.
in that sense. Yes, they are. And it's very family oriented. People
Oh, I
are,
love that.
yeah, it's very good that way. Friends, family, togetherness, and looking out for one another. So I haven't seen any, not even T-shirts or anything with mushrooms on it, or but I know in the cities, like in Medellin or Bogota, in the big cities, there's a very different culture. And
Yes.
I've only been in the countryside, if you like. So
So
that might
I
be to
was
be
speaking to
expected.
I was speaking to a guy on the podcast about a year ago, and he was down there in Medellin, and he was Coyote Coyotepe Music School, something like that. I can't remember exactly how to say it, but he was doing like a ayahuasca music school, and it was
There you
very,
go.
very, very interesting. And I've never done ayahuasca because obviously you got to travel to South America to do that. But
Mm,
I'm very well versed in psilocybin mushrooms, and I do those. Haven't done it in a long time, but
You're a real
when I
traveler.
yes, exactly, and that's where I was going with it. That is where my whole world view changed.
Hmm.
I'd like to say it was the first time, but probably the second or third time that I consumed psilocybin. Everything started changing the way I feel, the way I think, the way I receive information, the way I give information, is very different now, and the way it has opened my eyes. There's a bigger and greater meaning to this life than just surface level bullshit. And to me, that's why like I don't let politics rile me up that much because for me in my life it doesn't really matter all that much.
Hmm. Right, because
And
you've been
so
into different dimensions and you can see the plurality of things. You said
yeah,
you like to put things in black and white, but you can see the nuance.
yes, yes.
Right? So to me, it would sound like that would be full of nuance. Where would that be bringing you to the black and white of things?
So it like politically, I can see the
Mm.
nuance of things and I don't get caught up in the nuance to make a decision. Like the Venezuela thing. I like I could be I understand the boats and the strikes on the boats and stuff. Like morally, we could get caught up in the moral justifications of it all day long. We could talk about that. I didn't pull the trigger. I wasn't there. I understand why they did it though. And that was the things that happened before Maduro was taken. Um, those were pretty much a setup to get justification on the legal end so they could get away with whatever they're doing. they don't have to be honest about it. They don't have to be truthful about it. The only thing that matters is perception and how we feel about it. Because like ultimately they're going to do what they want. It's whether they get pushback on it or not, and how the rest of the world feels about it. And they obviously had enough justification to go in there and do it because nobody's getting that pissed off about it. And the only people that are pissed off about it are people that have the people that should mind their p's and q's, if you know what I mean. Um, those nuances, I can understand those nuances and still make the decision to do something that might not be ethical, if that makes sense. I call it like a moral
I hear you.
flexibility.
I hear
I
you.
call it like a moral flexibility is what I
I
call it.
see.
But that's probably, and I'm not an educated person past high school.
Hmm.
So some things that I have difficulty communicating with or articulating, it's not because I don't understand them. It's because I don't want to sound like an idiot. I don't want to sound like a fool. But so I put things in a black and white because like it takes me so long to articulate to other people how I understand things. I understand looking at things from like a World War III perspective or trying to prevent World War III, or we already are in a World War III situation.
Hmm.
I mean, that's how I can justify being okay with what happened. It's more or less trying to be okay with myself.
Hmm. Yeah, I hear what you're saying. Um, that flexibility of America often finds itself being morally justified. This is a perception from abroad. I think it's very well deserved that America finds itself to be morally justified to act in all these different manners, and while the population perceives that they're doing the right thing,
Yes.
whereas we're on the ground, it is nothing but it's not that. It's exactly what they're saying. It's for extraction of resources. It's
Yes.
for commercial deals. The people are not better off.
Yes.
From
And
many of my travels, I noticed it's the contrary of what we justify our actions in the U.S. to do for a certain reason. And if people here, they're scared. It's a democratically elected government. They voted for somebody on the left, but it's certainly no Maduro. It's no different
right.
than a Democrat, a democratically elected center left in Europe. And they're talking about deposing. They're afraid that you know we're Colombia's next, and you look around,
Yes,
it's like
and I'm
next
very,
about
very
what?
proud of. I'm very,
About
very
what?
proud of Colombia for how
Mm,
far they've come over the
mm,
last few decades.
right, right.
There's been a lot of
Yeah.
work over the last 20 years to
Oh, they've
to
done amazing.
eradicate the problems in Colombia, and Colombia's government works really close with ours. It's not like they don't work with us. It's not like
Right.
it's
Where
not
they're an
like
enemy of the state or something like
right.
this.
It's
Yeah.
not like there's an adversarial relationship there. And
Right.
it's negotiations. It's
Mm.
and it's a big game. And so George Carlin had a line, and
Mm. Okay.
it's a big club, and we ain't in it, man. And that's politics in a nutshell.
Yeah.
Um, but
But I
I can
agree we are in it.
understand.
I agree we are in it when we acquiesce and we turn our heads against from things that we find it's okay because it's for the greater good or something. No,
Yes.
we are part of it. We don't speak out, and when we don't feel we have the opportunity to speak out because we're not being heard, we can do it with strangers and with the people around us, which I think we're all in agreement there. I just got to do it, and it's painful at
Well,
the
when
beginning, and it's less painful afterwards.
I think
For those that don't do that,
I think
there's lots of people
politically,
that wouldn't do that.
when we're doing these things around the world, if
Mm,
the United States government was honest, was quite a bit more honest with Americans,
Yeah, with Americans, yeah, because it's very
they
honest
would,
abroad. It's very,
right.
this is
They
like
would be, I think
there's
they'd be
nothing
able to get
hidden.
away with a lot more, right? Because, like,
Mm,
so the bottom line, I believe, in Venezuela didn't have anything to do with Venezuela. It was Russia and China. We
mm,
don't even care about the oil. It's not that big a deal. Um, I believe it was a message to Russia and China that they need to get out of the Western Hemisphere. I believe ultimately, if things don't tone down and calm down, it will be a global war. And this is the beginning stages of it. People are picking sides. South America is they had a lot of communist influence in South America from Russia. And then now with China wanting to compete over here, ultimately geopolitics is what it was. It didn't have anything to do with Maduro. It didn't have anything to do with Venezuela. Um, I don't think the United States government really cares if Venezuela collapses as long as China and Russia don't get it.
Gonna be a lot more refugees.
Yes,
Collapses.
exactly.
Yeah, there's tons
Exactly.
of them here. Most of them are here in Colombia.
And that's that
It's ton.
moral flexibility that I was talking about is because I understand that I'm I'm okay with them doing whatever they need to do, even if it's lie, cheat, and steal to put us back where we need to be on the top. And I that's one of those things that I have like with strangers. If they understood that about me, they would probably freak out, and they were talking to somebody that, like a Nazi or something. But
Yeah, I
I'm
feel like
not.
your
I'm
your like for me, it's like, oh, the dark side's coming out here. I'd rather be in a group of, I'd rather be, I was on a one podcast, and it was all, about the fights, the upcoming fight that's coming together, and you better be well armed and prepared. And I thought, oh
yeah, I'm
man,
not.
I'd rather be in a village with a lot of people that all have different opinions and stuff, but we all
Me too.
like we're brothers and sisters here.
Me
We're
too.
gonna make it than just being on my own on my compound with a few buddies. It's
Well, I mean that is like, but when
it's gonna be
talking
better.
about the dark side, though, that's one of those
Mm,
things that like people don't talk about. It's the dark side, right? Like here in the
mm.
United States, we enjoy a
Oh,
lot of things.
talk about the
We
dark side a lot. I feel in the U.S., like what it could be through programs and stuff like apocalyptic programming. I mean,
Yeah,
I enjoy watching that stuff. What's going to happen if and when,
right.
and the signs are here, and uh, but then you go to another country and everybody's like, okay, you know what? Things are pretty good. You know,
Yes,
things are
yes.
pretty
And so
chill.
I
There's
would
no
rather
Berlin.
live myself the way Colombians do. I would rather live in a tribal village and
Yeah.
be, we all it takes a village to raise a kid kind of thing. I
Hmm.
believe in that. I
Yeah.
wholeheartedly believe in that. I believe families need to stick together.
Mm.
I believe like our family lives in a 1,000 square foot house. It's very small, but there's four
Mm,
of
cool.
us, and
Nice.
so we're very close together, and I believe in that. I would, if it was up to me, the rest of my family would live right next door, or
Hmm.
we'd live in a compound together. That's essentially how I would want to live. But as like
It's not
most
set up that way, is it? Yeah.
no, you're
U.S.
right. You're right.
Yeah, you
Most
got big
Americans
roads and
view
spread out.
Yes.
Yeah.
Most Americans view the world how we want it to be versus how
Mm,
it actually is.
mm,
And I think the darker side of things would be pointing out that look, you wouldn't have a lot of these things if we didn't do these things. So if you like these things, we got to keep doing these things. If you like having, an electric vehicle, we gotta keep burning fossil fuels. I'm sorry, that's just the way it is. If you don't want an electric vehicle, great. That gives us a little bit time to figure out something else, figure out how to power all this shit.
mm,
But it's essentially that. It's like there is a darkness and there is a nuance to things that nobody looks at, nobody pays attention to. And if they do, they don't talk about it. Nobody wants to talk about the blight
mm,
in the room. I'm that
mm.
guy. I'll talk about it all day long. That's the nuance that I'm talking
That's
about. I like to
that's the
put
best
things
way to
in.
avoid it.
Right.
It's the best way to avoid it is to confront it. It's like comedy,
Exactly.
right? You can bring it
Exactly.
out. You just got to bring it out, and be able to talk about it, and not just to talk about it. Talk is a form of action, but you need to act in different ways too. Um, and we can all do that. Yeah,
Yes.
for sure. But I say once again, be forewarned. There's pain involved, and that's okay. We
Yes.
got to get over like our comfort, because it's
Yes.
getting out of
That's
our
right.
comfort zone to speak to others in their different echo chambers and explore that. Love to come back and just explore echo chambers, for example, and points of view. Right? How do we enter other people's point of view and discover that and travel within that area? But yeah, so it's this. There's an amount of discomfort, and if we're ready to face that, like, it takes courage, right? Yeah, it's like not that much courage in the sense, right? It's do it, practice small bits by bit, we get to a place and we can confront the darker sides of side where we expect things are going, because it's not what we're most of us want to go. But we
Right.
can see it coming. Let's do something about it. This is the way I found to do it. Right? There's so many other ways, but sometimes we don't know what they are. So try mine out. Try yours out. Try all these different things out. And give it a go, right?
Yeah. Yeah. And
Because
I'm
otherwise it's going
willing.
to be awfully shitty
Yes. I'm
for my
willing to
daughter.
try things. I'm willing to try things like the hard things and um so let's talk about
Okay.
socialism. If there was a way for us to try
Uh,
socialism
uh,
and if we don't like it, go immediately back, I would do that. But that's not the case. How it works is like ultimately we have to let things run their course. Capitalism, they call the what's happening right now to the economy and businesses being bigger than life and the social media and tech companies being, $1 trillion
mm,
companies or whatever. They say that's late stage capitalism, and I don't think so. I think that this version of capitalism has never been tried. But I think a lot of people say that about socialism. A lot of people say that about a lot of things. And how I like to look at things is not in a socialist or capitalist or communist kind of way. I like to look at whatever works. And the Social Security system here in the United States was made as like a pension thing, and I agree with that. That's I agree with Social Security and having Social Security, that particular safety net. A lot of people would call that socialism. Well, it's kinda, not really, but kinda. Um,
mhm.
that's how I am, and if we could try different things, and if it don't work, let's go right back to the way it was and figure something else out. But that's not how things actually work.
We're a pretty flexible country.
I like to think
We're
so. I
yeah,
like to
yeah. I
think so.
think
I mean, Zohran
that
Mamdani
sticks.
got elected in New York. I never saw something like that happening
Yeah,
in New
me
York
neither.
City, but
Yeah.
and I'm okay with trying different things as long as we don't get violent with it. Like um, I'm I'm okay with immigration reform, right? I'm
Mhm.
just not okay with violently ripping people out of their homes to do it. You know what I mean? I
Right.
just I'm that's that moral flexibility and the nuances that I can see, and I'd rather put it in like black and white terms when speaking with somebody else because it's easier. It really
I
is.
get
It's
it. Yeah,
easier
yeah.
for me to explain. It's
Like
easier for me to explain immigration on that way instead of I actually think there's a whole big problem with immigration, and I think this is I actually think what's happening right now is not immigration reform. I think it's getting ready for something, and
yeah,
we
I
saw it
think so
in the
too. Yeah.
we
There's
saw it in the
something. There's something.
40s with the internment camps.
Mhm.
That's what this reminds me of, and I was just talking to my dad about it yesterday. Um, this reminds me a lot of internment camps, and I think we're getting ready for something, and nobody's talking about it. Nobody's saying anything, and you're exactly right. This is how we prevent it. Let's talk about World War III because we're headed there if we're not already there.
Right on. Yeah, let's talk. Let's talk to strangers. Let's talk to others. Let's be there for the other, and from the ground up, or just keeping that foundation strong and alive. And let's repair the cracks. Let's bridge over all the little cracks, one conversation at a time, make it as solid as possible. We could totally do it. It just,
Hell yeah.
as I said, it's a little bit painful, but we could do it. But it could be a lot more painful if we don't.
That's right. That's right. Well, David, where can people find you, man?
The only thing that I'm doing these days is I'm adding some videos here and there onto YouTube to my triptych dialogue project. So you got to type in this weird word called triptych, TRIPTYCH, and then dialogue, DIALOGUE. And if you do that, you should find my happy face with a hat on it and doing weird stuff in national parks and others.
Hell
And
yeah.
that's the only thing I'm doing. What we did, but my artwork is like with you right now is having conversations,
That's
and I
awesome.
hope everybody out there goes and does something, and then maybe next time we could talk about what the three non-confrontational political questions are, but they can find them on Triptych Dialogue for sure on
Triptych
YouTube there.
Dialogue on
Yeah,
YouTube, and we'll link that down below. David, it's been a great conversation, man. I've this hour's just flown by. I'm impressed, and I gotta say, man, I love what you're doing. I love it. It's bigger than art for me. It's life. Um,
mhm.
Dialogue. I think diplomacy and dialogue can really change the world if we let it work, right? And it's very important. It's very important to me, it's very important to you, and it's very important to everybody around the world to not shut shit down, man. Let's open it up. Let's open it up. Let's talk and let's have fun, just like you are with your art
Yeah,
and triptych dialogue, man. And
yeah.
I again, I can't thank you enough for coming by and sharing with us, man. Thank you.
Thank you, man. That's a real pleasure. Till next
Awesome.
time, man.
Awesome. We'll see you next time.